As we get started here, Logan, I'm going to ask for a quick check. Are you able to see our PowerPoint deck today?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. Starting off on a strong foot here. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. For those of you that have attended our previous webinars, welcome back. Thank you for attending. And for those that are new, thank you for joining us for the first time. We'll have some more information on where you can find a link to our other webinars as we proceed through today's conversation. Today, we'll be focusing on the power of the mobile application in Acumatica. Logan will be taking us through a demonstration. Logan is one of our core implementation consultants in business applications at SVA, and Tanya is our client success manager at SVA as well. As we proceed through the conversation today and through the content, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop those in the Zoom chat. Tanya will help moderate those questions as they're received. We'll periodically get questions related directly to the content we're covering. And if that is the case, we'll do our best to address it on the spot. Otherwise, for some questions, we'll retain those for the end of the webinar, or we'll have an extended Q&A session to address those questions along with any others that might surface. As we get started, I'm going to cover a few topics here that we can expect. First off, as we get into the mobile app with Acumatica, I want to make sure that we can understand the key offerings and features that are associated with that app, benefits that can be expected as organizations utilize the mobile app. And then we'll get into the exciting part of today's presentation, and that's going to be the live demonstration. Logan will be sharing out his phone and the mobile application and navigating through a series of features. We'll come back to our presentation to discuss additional functions that are particular to certain areas such as warehouse, operations, manufacturing, payroll, and so forth. And then, as I said, we'll have our Q&A session. We'll have a link to our upcoming webinar, as well as directions to access our other webinar recordings. All right. A few key offerings that I want to make sure that we highlight with the mobile app. With Acumatica, you're able to access the app through a phone or tablet type device. So when we speak mobile, I want to make sure that we are contemplating not just the phone, but perhaps tablets as well for a larger screen if that is preferred. This application is available through the Google Play Store and the Apple Store as well. No cost for that download of the app and can be searched and found right in those respective stores. With that, as you access the application, the security structure that is retained within your web-based Acumatica version will be enforced through the mobile app. So when we think about the different roles that we might have set up for any given user, perhaps entity restrictions, data restrictions, those will apply in the mobile app as well. With that, we have some additional features that will be available to you when using a mobile device. And so when we think about using our iPhone or an Android device, we have features such as face recognition or login. We have voice to text capabilities. Those will be inherited through the mobile app as well. And you can use that to improve the user experience, whether that's accessing the app or navigating through it, creating transactions, as we'll see today. What I also want to highlight too is we have the capability to develop a personalized user experience. So for those of you that have been operating within the web-based version for quite some time, you're familiar with some of the dashboarding capabilities, widgets, filtering options. Those types of capabilities are available to you in the mobile app as well to, again, personalize that user experience. As somebody in Acumatica having my own profile, I would like to see information presented in a certain way based off of my job functions and what I'm monitoring on a daily basis, and I can isolate that within the mobile app. All right. As I proceed into some additions here for the mobile app, Logan, anything to add on your side?
No, I think we'll get into the functionality of the mobile app, really focusing on the areas that are maybe most beneficial or easy to use the Acumatica app for. Maybe you're not entering in a ton of new journal entries or AP bills to the mobile app, but using it for things like managing approvals, entering in tasks, tracking those items, obviously expense receipt management, as well as submitting time. So we'll walk through those in a live demonstration, but I think you covered everything for this slide here, John.
Perfect. right? And then a few benefits that we can consider as we roll out the mobile app at our organization, or if we're in the implementation process right now, areas that we can test as we're learning the software. So right out of the gate, we do have real-time access. So as Logan is accessing his demo environment, that is live data. With that, under as a second bullet here, we have the automatic synchronization. So as changes are made, that will be directly reflected in the Acumatica ERP, whether web-based or mobile. So that is live data, live transactions, and again, it's fully enforced through your security model. So any restrictions that are surrounding a user or a user base will be enforced at that grain in the mobile app. You'll also see cross-tenant accessibility as well. So as we get into the environment, for those that have multiple production environments or are in a position to toggle between production and testing environments, you'll have that capability too. The third bullet here that I want to highlight is the ability to extend functionality. So at times we do need to create custom solutions for Acumatica. The same is true for the mobile app. There is a mobile application framework, a set of tools and languages that can be leveraged to customize the mobile app experience beyond the native functions. We won't go into that as it is a very technical area, but just know that as we cover some of the native functions, if there's some questions that you have about extending through a customized route, that is an available option. And then lastly, the mobile device integration. I know I had touched on the facial recognition, perhaps voice to text. Thinking of more common features within a phone, such as mobile notifications, and the customization around how that gets delivered to you as a user. Those can be managed as well. So again, it is a separate mobile app. You can also access Acumatica just through any piece of technology that has a web browser on it. This is the actual mobile app through the App Store, again, at Apple or Android. So all those notification settings can be tailored as well and delivered to you as a user so that you can stay better connected, especially for, say, higher priority times within your organization. High priority items such as bills that need to be approved that exceed a certain dollar threshold, expense claim management, those types of things. So all of those integrated components that are available to you. All right. So with that, Logan, I think I can transition over to you to share out your mobile device, and we'll go ahead and get to the system.
Perfect. And I don't think it'll let me share out until you stop sharing here. If you go ahead and do that, perfect.
No problem. I guess I can stop sharing here to allow that.
All right, so I'll go ahead and share out my mobile device here then. John, if you could just confirm when you're able to see it.
It is still loading here. Yep, we got it.
Perfect. All right, so you can see that Acumatica mobile app up in the top hand portion of my screen here. So I'll just go ahead and open this up. Just a little bit of context here. So I did enter in my Acumatica site URL as the first step to linking this to my mobile app. And then, as John mentioned, I just logged in utilizing my username and password. If you had Active Directory enabled, your Face ID, things like that, you could also log into the Acumatica app that way. Having said that, so this is going to be our landing page for the Acumatica mobile app. So at the top, we'll see what company we're logged into. If we had applicable branches, we'd also see that detail. So same thing as the desktop application. It will matter what kind of branch and company we're logged into, and I'll show you here in a minute how to toggle between them, but that'll also apply here to the mobile application. The second piece of information we have are those KPIs. So a few I just had listed here with the open cases and tasks. These would be maybe smaller widgets that you just want to see easy access into the mobile app. To add these KPIs, we just hit this ellipses to the right of that KPI icon there. We'd then be allowed to add in the KPI, or if we wanted to update our current list, we have the ability to do so. Just to demonstrate how to add in that KPI, I'll go ahead and click in here. We'll see all the different widgets that we're able to add in here. So let's say I wanted to add in our late production orders. I wanted more visibility into that. Go ahead and select, and then hit done. We'll then see that updated here. So we have 18 late production orders, maybe not a great sign, but we have that quick kind of data visibility into that within our homepage. Another piece, I'm looking a little bit further down here, is the recently visited records. So these would be individual records in the system. It's like individual journal transactions. If you had AR invoices, AP invoices that you're recently looking at, if you're entering in a time card, those would all be tracked here. So you can kind of navigate back to those quickly within the system. And so let's say I want to take a look at this last GL batch. If I just clicked into that, we'd then be brought directly into the journal transaction screen, see some of that detail like the total amount, the branch it's coded to, post period, and things like that. If we needed to approve it, we'd have the ability to do so from this screen. So in that bottom right-hand corner, the ellipses, if I open this up, and this isn't one we'd approve, here is where we'd be prompted to approve or reject this record, if that's what we're doing in the system. I'll go ahead and back out of that screen. A few other areas that we can see here are favorite screens, and I'll show you how we can add in new records. Let's say you're potentially adding in new leads or contacts often. You wanted that directly on your homepage. We can simply favorite that screen and it will populate here within the homepage. We'll also see our workspaces. So this is going to mimic your security access in the desktop version of Acumatica. So wherever you have security rights, we'll see those same workspaces reflected here within the mobile app. Time and expenses is going to be one that we're going to be looking at quite a bit today with our core functions. So if I just clicked into that, here we'll see all of our different screens within that module. And we could also have specific KPIs by different module if we wanted to do so outside of just that standard homepage screen. We'll also see towards the bottom of this homepage. So we have a little bit more flexibility in updating the mobile app actually through the desktop version. So we can make those changes and it'll be reflected on the mobile app. But a few things you can do natively just from the mobile device on the main screen. If we didn't want to see things like the recently visited record or the favorites, maybe our workspaces weren't necessarily relevant, we'd rather just favorite all of our screens. We can actually remove that here and update that natively through the mobile app. If we made changes, didn't like it, wanted to reset to the default, you'll also see that option at the bottom of your screen. Moving along kind of the bottom bar here of the mobile app, we'll see the search icon. So this is going to be very similar to the global search functionality within the desktop version of Acumatica. But if I was searching for a screen here, let's just say I'm looking up our sales orders, I could simply type that in. A few other things you'll notice if we had maybe like sales quotes you wanted to take a look at, if there are any keywords there that might pick up in the system. We want to look at this specific sales quote. We could search that by like the chocolate by design. That would also come up, as well as any relevant screens here for my search. So I'm looking at the sales orders. I'll just go ahead and click into that. From here, if you wanted to search for any specific sales orders, we'll have that more specific search functionality. The bottom left, we'd be able to create a new record. Again, I don't know how often to be creating new sales orders in the system. We do have that ability though. On the bottom right-hand portion of the screen, we have the ellipses here, and that's where I was mentioning adding the screen to favorites. So if I actually go ahead and update that here, and so I added that screen to my favorites. If I come back into my main page, we'll now see under my favorite records, we have the sales order screen as well. And so that'll update this page here, as well as underneath the star on the bottom bar. Getting a little bit ahead of myself, but we'll see the screens here as well. It'd be listed in both places, all of my favorite screens, as well as any individual records that I wanted to favorite. Another piece on actually the sales order screen. So if I just go back into my search here and pop back open the sales orders, is the filtering capability in the system. So if I actually click on the sales order at the top where it has a little drop down, we'll then see all of my filters that have been set up in the desktop version of Acumatica. So on the desktop version of Acumatica, on the sales order screen, I had applied a couple different filters. I can filter down to my specific sales orders. If I wanted to see things over $10,000, we'll have all those same filtering capabilities in the desktop, which will update the mobile application, and then I can apply those filters here. So if I clicked into the orders greater than 10,000, for example, we'll see this list filter down based on that parameter. To reiterate, you'd probably be creating those filters within the desktop version of Acumatica, probably a little bit easier to create them there, but that will apply here, and then we can utilize those filters to easily filter down this list. Perfect. I know we briefly showed this as well, but just again, moving along the bottom portion of our screen, we'll then see all of our screens that we have favorited queued up here, as well as any individual records. So in this case, I had just logged into an individual general ledger batch, marked it as a favorite, and this is now stored in our favorite records for us to come back to in the system. And then the last piece here of our four kind of bottom portions of the screen is going to be our individual settings. So at the top, we'll see the company that we're logged into. Here's where we can switch between branches and companies as needed. So if I click into that, here we'll see all of the different entities that have been set up in the system. If I wanted to switch which entity I'm logged into, so maybe you have different security restrictions by branch, you can only see certain data when you're logged in. All we'd have to do is click into that individual branch, and that would update my login. So I'm logged into the Eastern Mexico, in this case, branch, and that will update the mobile application just like it would within the desktop version of Acumatica. So I'll go back and I'll actually switch back to Canada just for this demonstration. All right. The one screen below that, here's where we'd be if we had any test tenant set up. So if we had a pilot site that we wanted to log into, maybe do any testing for the Acumatica mobile application, we could actually toggle between that here as well. So it doesn't necessarily only need to be connected into your live production site. Another potential use case, if we had a temporary sandbox set up or something like an upgrade and we wanted to test some things out, we could also connect into that environment through the screen and then toggle between our different sites in the system. That. A few other pieces here. This sign in with Face ID would just be connected to your iPhone if you want to allow the ability to sign in to this mobile application with Face ID recognition. And then the bottom piece will be signing out. So this will be applicable again if you're connecting into maybe a new sandbox environment, you need to log out of production to add in that additional URL. We would just sign out and then sign back in with the correct credentials. Next up here, I think I'll talk through some of our maybe core functions of the mobile application, but I'll stop here, John. Anything you'd like to add on anything that I covered, just general settings within the mobile app?
I think you highlighted it well, Logan, especially with the toggle between tenants. I think that the sandbox version for upgrades is a great example as well. So being able to access those different URLs, again, you can see that it is just a toggle. So it should be fairly simple from a user access standpoint. But again, the security is all driven based off of the core security that you have set within the web-based version.
All right. So with that, I want to highlight a few processes that are maybe most geared towards use within the mobile application, easiest to use. So like I mentioned, maybe we're not entering in new sales orders here, but different areas that we'd like to manage would be essentially creating a new expense receipt and then submitting that for approval in the system. So I have that listed as one of my favorites, and I'll just go ahead and create a new expense receipt here. All right, at the bottom left, we just have this plus icon that if I go ahead and select it, it'll bring us into a new expense receipt in the system. And we'll also see that camera icon at the top left-hand portion of my screen. If I click into that, that will actually just open up my camera. And here I can take a picture of a receipt. So I have this FedEx receipt for demonstration here. Go ahead and take a picture. We'll then be prompted to kind of trim this down just so we only have the relevant receipt information here. Not doing well.
And Logan, this doesn't appear to be the $150 Chipotle meal that you routed to me for approval last time.
Yeah, I think it's a little more legitimate expense in this case. All right, so we'll go ahead and hit done, and that'll attach that expense receipt image to this expense receipt within Acumatica. One thing to note, this should be picking up kind of the value through a smart text recognition feature. I don't know if it's because I have a really old crumpled receipt here that's causing it some issues, but that is a piece we can also use within the mobile app. For our description here, so that would just be the description of this expense. So I could say this is my FedEx laptop expense, and that would carry over into the person reviewing this expense receipt. They would see that description for this individual receipt. We'll also have the date, so whatever date this expense was incurred, that'll default in to the current date. We'll then have our list of expense items. So whatever has been set up in the system, these should all populate, and we'll count this one as an office supplies expense. And then I'll pull in things like the GL coding that isn't done on an individual receipt basis. That's all tied in with that expense item. We'll then have the amount field here. I'll just manually type that in for this one. And we then have the ability to tie this into a project or a project task if applicable. So we'll have those drop downs as needed. For this one, I'll just leave it as a non-project code. We can link this back to a specific project as needed. Our cost code might oftentimes default in. In this case, I'll just go ahead and populate one of our cost codes. If we do need to update that value, we certainly can do so. A couple of other pieces, if this was a billable expense potentially back to a customer, if we check that box, we'd then be prompted to specify which customer that was applicable to. But if everything looks good here, so we scanned in our receipt, we have that attached, we populated the amount, any of the needed fields have all been populated, I can go ahead and hit save in the upper right-hand corner of my screen. Here we'll see a list of all of our expense receipts in the system. What is a helpful function here? So if you're incurring expense items throughout the month, and maybe at the end of March, you need to claim all of them, you could hit this claim all button at the bottom, and this will pull in all of our receipts into one consolidated claim. So I just have the one in this case, but if I go ahead and hit the claim all, it should pull in that receipt that we have open. Right. So there we'll see that claim total of $35.22 pulling in from that one receipt. Again, we could have multiple receipts on this claim. Does not have to be a one-to-one match in this case. Also have that dates update. So if it was the end of the month, maybe we'd update that to the end of the month. And if we wanted to give us an additional description outside of submitted receipts, we can say maybe March expenses and save. If we did at this point realize we had more receipts to add, we could hit that add receipt button at the bottom middle section of the screen. But if everything looks good, we can actually go ahead and hit submit. We could also save this and come back to it later up in the top right. But at this point, I'll actually submit this for approval.
And Logan, while that is being submitted, one thing to, again, point out with the live feed between your web-based version and the mobile app, if you are on the go collecting receipts, we do see in practice at times there is a preference to formalize the claim in the web browser. So if you are capturing those receipts, again, those will be available to you to produce the claim. You do have the option to create the claim with all of those receipts, as Logan's demonstrating here, but that can also be done in a web-based version if you're on the go and you just want to collect your receipts.
And the fact that the expense management module also supports corporate credit cards. So it's not just what you're getting reimbursed for yourself, correct?
Correct. Yep, that's a great point, Tanya.
And so at this point, this had been submitted for approval. I have the approve icon down in the bottom right. If I wasn't the assigned approver, we wouldn't be able to do this. This is my demo, so I am the assigned approver. So I was able to approve this specific expense claim. Probably wouldn't want your own, be the one approving your own expense claim. So, but we can see then at that point that would go through your approval process. All right. Another core function here within the mobile app is going to be managing our approvals. So another screen that I had favorited within our screens, but just to show another way to get there, if we go into the time and expenses, so again, mimicking the desktop version, I can go ahead and click into our approvals. And here we'll see one My Approvals queue. So these are ones that are directly assigned to me across Acumatica. So I could have a journal transaction, an AR invoice, an AP invoice, purchase orders, whatever it may be. Those will all queue up into my approvals queue. A few other filters that are going to be here, and if I just click that approvals button at the top, if I had any work group approvals, so maybe I wasn't the assigned approver, the primary approver, but something was assigned to a work group I was a part of, that'll also be a separate queue. So I can go ahead and click into that. And here we'll see some bills that were picked up. So maybe I was a part of the finance team designated for approving AP bills. Those would then all populate within my work group approvals. We also have the ability to look at all. So the all queue would be all of your own approvals, as well as any work group approvals that you have been assigned. And then the last filter here would be reassigned. So maybe you're out of office for a week, your approvals got reassigned to someone else during that time. We could still track that on an individual basis. You could see what had been reassigned and you can actually approve that yourself. But those would be records that had been identified and reassigned to someone else on your behalf. Just show what this looks like. And if I click into this top bill here, give it a second. All right, so we'll see some high level details so we can see the invoice number, what vendor it's going to, our terms, the total amount of this invoice. We'll see all that at a summary level. If we had more details within this, and if I had more lines, I don't have a ton of detail listed here, we could drill down into those individual lines of the invoice as well. But if I wanted to approve this on the go, so everything looked good, I didn't have any questions for whoever submitted this for approval. In the bottom right-hand portion, we'll see the ability to approve or reject this document. So if I wanted to approve, I'd simply go ahead and select approve, and you'll now see this move forward into a balanced state for further processing. And it would be similar functionality across the different entities. So a journal transaction, again, if you approved it, it would go into a balanced state, and that would update the desktop version of Acumatica as well. Perfect. And I'll back out here. Another piece that we wanted to touch on was task management. So these would typically be internal tasks that maybe you assign to someone else within the organization to take a look at. So in my example here, I had, please update the AA services ACH information. Maybe something changed that you're aware of. You didn't have that information available to you. We have the ability to assign these tasks a priority level, what the status is. So we can see this was assigned to my user account in that owner field with a priority of high. So in this case, you could go ahead and review this specific vendor, ACH information. Also, if maybe on the mobile app, you'd already known that you completed this task, it's all ready to go. The ACH information is correct. What you could do in that case is just mark this as complete. And we'll see in the bottom middle portion here, you can mark that as complete and that would update the system as well. You could also reassign this task. So maybe you wouldn't be the correct person. If I click into that owner field, we'd have an employee list here for you to reassign that task as needed. And you could add a comment to them when reassigning that task. But again, if everything looks good, I can mark this as complete and we should see that status update here. So it's no longer open, it'd be cleared out of our task list. If we wanted to review that, we could also look at our all. So this would show us completed tasks as well. And we'll see that at the top of our list. I think the last function here that we wanted to show within the mobile app was entering in time. So with that, I'll go ahead and click into my employee time cards. By default, we'll see all of our on-hold time cards. So if you're entering in time on maybe a daily basis and coming back to it, we'd see everything that's been saved into the system, but not submitted. All those be in that on-hold status, and I could click into this and update my time as needed. So here we'll see summary detail. So we have 20 hours spent this week. And if I clicked into the summary tab, we'll see what project and task we've coded that time against, how much time total. And we can also see the date it was incurred if I click into any one of these. So here we'll see on Monday, we spent 8 hours for this project and project task. And we could update this as needed. So let's say we spent an additional 2 hours on Tuesday here. If I go ahead and hit 2 hours and then update, here we'll see we have 16 total hours against that project and project task. And if I back it up one more, we'll then see that total time on that time card update to 22 total hours as well. So I'll save that, but I also want to show kind of the creation of a new time card here. So that's how you would update it if you already had a time card existing within the system. If I wanted to create a new one, we'd simply hit that plus icon in the bottom left. And we'll see it'll automatically generate an employee time card ID, nothing we have to do there. We can enter time in at a summary level or a detailed level. If I'm just doing this day by day, at a day by day level for individual projects, I can click into the summary tab. And we'll again have the ability to add in a new record. So here's where we'd specify an individual project that we're working on. All right. And this will open up the tasks. So whatever tasks we have set up associated with this project would now be available. Looks like we just have the one in this case. Our labor item defaulted in, and I'll just select the cost code as well to make sure we're able to submit this. We then have the option to mark this as billable or non-billable. We could also add in a description for this time as needed. And then we'd actually enter in the time logged in this case on a day-by-day basis at a summary level. If we needed a more granular view, we could do that within the details screen. But let's say I spent 4 hours on this project on Monday and 5 hours on Tuesday. We can log that information here, and we can also see we have the minutes on the right. So if we need to get more granular than that, we can certainly do so. I'll show that now with just 5 hours and 15 minutes. And then I'll hit update, and this will update the total time committed against this time card. So the summary view is, again, by project, we see that total time spent as one component of the time card. If we had multiple different projects we were working on, we'd see that view here of all those different projects feeding into our total time card time. And so I'll back up one here. Now we'll see that 9 hours, 15 minutes spent for this time card. Probably want to make sure we enter in our time for the entire week before submitting. Let's just say for this demonstration, we were done for the week. This is all that we were submitting. We could hit save in the top right to commit that to the system. We'll then see this is on an on hold status. If I click into that time card again, we can then submit it at the bottom left-hand portion of our screen. And that'll then go to the appropriate approver for review. So I'll have that pending approval status. And at this point, we've submitted our time. It's in the hands of someone else for further processing. Let's do a quick recap here of kind of what we talked through. Our homepage is really going to be a customizable area. Want to make sure that we have specific widgets, favorite screens available to us just for quick, easy views within the mobile application. We have quite a bit of flexibility in what we can show here. A few of the core functions of the mobile app that are definitely a good use of the mobile application in terms of data entry. They're easy to do. We'd be managing approvals, entering our time, submitting expense receipts. And we also showed the management of tasks within the system. And then within your profile, we have the ability to navigate between test tenants as well as your live production. So you can make sure we do any testing in the mobile application before actually committing it to our live production site. With that, I think that's everything that I wanted to demonstrate. John or Tanya, anything I missed that we want to add on further?
I don't think so. We can jump into some additional functions that would be available to us.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Stop sharing my screen.
Go ahead and share mine out. And it looks like it's still loading on my side. Let's see here.
We can see it.
You should be good.
All right. All right. Well, I think I got booted. Let me try to reshare.
That's okay. Looks like you're back now.
All right. Perfect. And I'm assuming that was a technical glitch. And Logan, you weren't just kicking me out of the meeting. I could be wrong. We'll try it again. All right. Are you able to see the additional functions slide?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So a few other areas that we wanted to highlight as well. And as we progress through additional webinar topics throughout the year, again, we have a monthly cadence with that. We'll be covering some of these capabilities as they relate specifically to the function. So a few to highlight. On the warehouse side, we can think about leveraging the mobile app to automate our warehouse operations. So tracking inventory transactions through barcode scanning. We just have a screenshot over on the right-hand side, and that can be leveraged for receiving, put away process, picking, packing, our standard procedures within the warehouse operations. Similarly, within the manufacturing side, We can have reports or labels to be scanned to track the production process. So as the raw materials are moving from one stage to the next in that production life cycle, all the way to the completion of the finished good, we can track certain material movement based off of our mobile device and having that scanning capability. So we've seen that leverage heavily in the manufacturing space. Additionally, I know, Logan, as you were going through a few of your examples, we saw some indications of projects. So I do have some specific on the construction side, but also too, keeping in mind with those that are project-based, having some capabilities that are particular to, say, change requests, change orders, project task management, all available to us within the project-based model. But within the construction features as well, we have the ability to edit our construction documents. So if we're thinking about perhaps subcontractors, subcontracts that we have in the system, submittals, drawing logs, the photo upload process as well when we're out on a job site, all of that can be leveraged through the mobile app, making sure that we stay connected back to our reporting and are logging that all appropriately. We don't have to wait until the end of the day on our laptop at the desktop version of it to log all this information. We can do it live while we're on the job site. There's also the GPS tracking capability as well that's integrated within the mobile app. In addition to on the construction side, so if we think about some of the project issues, change requests, and things like that are perhaps submitted through our daily field report, we'll make sure too that we can leverage the approval process as well as those get surfaced. So all those functions around approvals that Logan had highlighted through the expense claim, or even if we're doing our time cards, that will be available as well through our standard functions in Acumatica, change requests, change orders, anywhere that we have an approval, we can have that leverage through the mobile app as well. A few things to highlight too on the payroll side is better accessibility for the payroll data within Acumatica to employees. So being able to primarily access and print your pay stubs through a mobile app. In addition, for those that are requiring specific signature on documents, being able to track the signage of those documents, make requests for signatures, and automate that archiving process for electronically signed documents that can be navigated through the mobile app as well. So quite a few functions here. And as I said, as we get deeper into our webinar series throughout the year, we'll cover specific functions around warehouse manufacturing, and we'll go through some of the mobile capabilities that are associated with that as well. Same on the construction side. All right. Logan or Tanya, any additional functions that you'd like to highlight? Awesome. Actually, one piece too on the CRM side as well. So if we think about the organizing leads, opportunities, Logan, we did see that within your mobile app, right? We were able to access those leads, those opportunities, that full capability to being exposed for our individuals using CRM, whether that's on the marketing side or the case management. All right. So with that, we have our next webinar. So in April 24th, we'll be covering the new features of Acumatica. Hard to believe, but we're already at the 2024 R1 release. So we'll be covering those new features. So please scan that QR code and register for that. In addition, you'll see our contact information on the left-hand side. As always, feel free to reach out with any additional questions that you have, or if you're exploring rolling out the mobile app in the organization for certain functions within your organization, we'd be happy to discuss what that plan looks like and how we can support it. And then for those of you that haven't attended our previous webinar sessions, we do have a YouTube channel with all the Acumatica webinars linked there. And so under our SVA Consulting YouTube page, you'll see Acumatica webinars, that full list updated as soon as the recording here is available to us. And as always, the Acumatica community, we always recommend our clients reach out on the Acumatica community. There's a lot of resources out there. If you have questions, there's probably something in the forums that's related to it. Can be a helpful landing point to get information from the system, but also promote new product ideas as well. Acumatica is very responsive in that process, so be sure you check out the Acumatica community if you haven't. All right. And with that, Tanya, are we tracking any questions from the audience?
You guys did such a great job. There are no questions.
No questions? All right. Well, I think with that then, we should be all wrapped up here. I'll go ahead, stop sharing my screen. And if there's nothing else, thank you everybody for the attendance today, and we hope to see you in April for the new features. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.